Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the films. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Holiday Inn, directed by Mark Sandrich, The Mitchells vs. the Machines by Michael Rihanna and Jeff Rowe, Being the Ricardos, directed by Aaron Sorkin, and newly released Kimi by Steven Soderbergh, and Marry Me, directed by Kat Coiro. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, buddy. It's going pretty good. How was your week of movies, man?
Week of movie was all right. Of course, Valentine's Day week, Singles Awareness Week. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, but I mean, I'll be honest, not the best week of movies, but always excited to talk about movies. Let's not, don't get me wrong, is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's kind of middle of the road on a lot of things, and surprised by some, especially some Oscar nomination films that I'm, of course, covering, with all the catch-up work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's music to my ears because I love filling in that bottom barrel stuff.
You do.
I love because I don't have to sit there and watch
right,
it. It's not my job.
But we still, we still get the juice for it.
All right, well, we're gonna step back in time a little bit to a pretty classic movie. This is gonna be Holiday Inn. And this is 1942.
Which, I think is the earliest of the Fred Astaire's we've done so far this month.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And like you said, Fred Astaire movie and also Bing Crosby. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because kind of a holiday movie, and it is the big holiday movie Bing Crosby had before White Christmas.
Yes.
Everyone now knows White Christmas, but really Holiday Inn is kind of like right up there as far as critically reviewed and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But 1942, this is Holiday Inn. What do we have?
So Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby, a match made in musical heaven. Bing sings, and Fred's got the footwork, and that very much is the focus of this movie. We have Fred and Bing being performing partners together, and where Bing leaves for a different life, Fred tries to slowly pull him back in. This ends up having a little bit of a different outcome for what Fred's original plan, what Bing's original plans are, and instead he opens up a hotel called the Holiday Inn that is, its premise is that it is only open for festivities 15 days out of the year, which are the 15 federal holidays at the time. We were talking a little bit before the podcast. Holidays are referenced like Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday. So this is obviously a time capsule in that regard. So the film really focuses on the rivalry between these two. There's a lot that is... I wouldn't want to necessarily call it a love triangle, but it's feuding. It's feuding creatives. It's feuding performers of how Bing feels performances should be small scale. Wants to get away from the city. Wants to get away from stress. And Fred is obviously. Honestly, kind of plays our antagonist, if you will,
okay.
Or at least our kind of the conflicting partner, always trying to pull Bing into performance schemes, steal away his partners, and yada yada.
So how much does, and you kind of said that triangle, how much does our female lead, Marjorie Reynolds, play a role? Is she kind of take a back seat, or is she right in there with the boys?
I would say she takes a little bit more of a back seat. It's juggled actually between two female leads that are
Virginia Dale as well.
Yes. And I would say the main focus, though she is the subject of what Fred is trying to maybe grab away from Bing's production in the Holiday Inn. It's still it's about that conflict between the two partners.
Okay,
here.
all right.
I got to be honest, I didn't really love the main plot here. I mean, it just kind of meanders. The conflict between Bing and Fred, I just feel, is a little weak. So it's obviously meant to be petty, and a lot of the comedy plays off of the pettiness of it. So it's definitely intentional. I just didn't get much enjoyment out of it, and honestly, maybe a little bit of a bias, but I didn't really enjoy Fred in a kind of antagonistic role either. I didn't really, you know what I mean? That is 100% a bias, but
I like seeing him in the box he's supposed to be
yeah,
in, huh?
I do. It was weird. You know, he's I don't know. I didn't think it came off great, and especially for how much I really did like Bing Crosby in this. So, we'll of course we'll get into that in a second. I mean, the main focus as far as that criticism though is that I think if you know, folks at home, that you enjoy type of a love triangle type of setup or kind of a conflicting partners tit for tat type of story, I think that this movie definitely will check a box for you. I think for me, a little bit more lukewarm on it right from the get go because I just wasn't enjoying the setup, and certainly you know that is the whole follow through with the film. Then this movie, like a lot we have covered so far, is of course composed by the legendary Irving Berlin. And included in this film, like you introduced, Tom, are concepts of undoubtedly Bing's most famous movie, White Christmas. White Christmas actually is in this film as a song that Bing performs in the Holiday Inn. I'm not saying this as a detraction or critique of the film, but just very interesting how a lot of these musicals, a lot of Fred Astaire musicals are composed by Berlin, and I mean, a lot of classic songs are incorporated in this. We covered Easter Parade not too long ago, and very similarly, Easter Parade is as a song is in this movie as well.
Oh, really?
Composed,
the song itself?
You know, put to screen with Fred Astaire 10 years later, like we covered last week for Easter Parade.
And it's also like at Easter Parade, Holiday Inn, and White Christmas also. It's just like, you know, Irving Berlin has almost like the biggest name on the movie poster.
Yes.
Like, it's a big deal. And the dude's a powerhouse. And it's weird that, like, you know, we know these title names, especially like Holiday Inn. We definitely know White Christmas and everything as far as just the movie, not even the song. We know the actors that play the role, and Irving Berlin is just like, he's really he's
absolutely
huge. He's a big deal in this time. And the dude is like, he lived to 101, by the way. Like, he lived from 1888 to 1989. He was like
prolific, I think.
Prolific and decades and decades in the movie industry at like a high level. Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's good that you took a second to kind of like mention him and just like single him out because it's kind of super important.
Absolutely. I think the contributions here are huge. You're exactly right in the the promotional material and the marketing material of these films. Berlin's name is bigger than even directors and stars. You know, it's almost top bills sometimes.
Which just goes to show, I think back in the day, he was drawing you. He was used to draw people to the theater or something like that. And now it's like, I just feel like people have forgotten about him, you know?
Yeah, and it's odd because even looking at some of the songs he wrote, even beyond this film, it's an oddball of how we would forget someone like that, so prolific. But of course, you know, I mean, I think for the legacy of these films, the fact that he is put in such a forefront, that this is, you know, composed by him and he is being portrayed like a director, so integral as a director. I think, you know, I wanted to bring it up, and especially again, A Holiday Inn is a little bit of an anomaly because it has Easter Parade and White Christmas, and on probably some others that I maybe didn't even connect the wires with in later productions. It was just he said, you know, it was Bing singing White Christmas in the Holiday Inn. I wrote the note in my notes. I said, you know, holy crap, you know, this is like a proto White Christmas, and then he goes on to sing Easter Parade too. I was like, wait, what? I think an important thing to note, it's not a critique though, because I think in a lot of cases, maybe for more modern films, I would say, well, been there, done that.
Timing is interesting back then, the way things were done. Yeah, it's just kind of cool to highlight, and have some questions. Actually, I would love to kind of dig deeper in.
Absolutely.
To it.
But. Absolutely. I think, like I said before, Bing really is the standout and probably most enjoyable in the film. He has some great energy, some great comedic chops, which, as you're watching this film, especially if you've never seen it before and you go to watch it, folks, it's odd to take a look at because he's so laid back. His character is self-described as lazy. I think it works. It really does work on screen as far as Bing's energy. It's not that he is bouncing around the walls because he, frankly, can't keep up with Fred Astaire's cadence, literal and metaphorical, of what he has on screen. So I think the type of comedy, the type of sly looks that are incorporated from Bing, some physical comedy as well, and some slapstick. It really did work, and I think surprising because I was watching these movies for Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire was probably the weaker element for me,
right.
And Bing kind of stepped in to take the spotlight for me.
Well, the funny thing is with Bing, I'm just. So I actually haven't. I watched Holiday Inn a very, very, very long time ago.
Okay.
And White Christmas for me is like a family classic.
Of course.
All my, my aunts and my cousins. It's watched every year. That kind of thing. And it's just hearing the premise of this. It's just funny that you have two lead men, you have two lead females, but also the men. Like because in White Christmas, you have Danny Kaye, where it's just like. Bing Crosby can only, he'll dance a little bit, but not much.
It's not much.
He's much more in there for vocal instead of the dance and everything. Even in that movie, Bing there's kind of a coolness to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's kind of this. I've always said if the James Bond franchise happened a year earlier and in America, Bing would make a good Bond at a certain time of his life.
Bing Crosby.
But no, he's got a coolness to him, and he plays off that silliness where he's just like, I don't know, he plays the silliness off with a certain confidence that it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's being silly, but he's still cool. And it's fun to watch.
And that separation is definitely played for comedic moments in this film because, the opening number is a song about Fred not being able to sing, but he can dance, and Bing being able to sing, but not being able to dance.
Right.
So
who did you find yourself, well, it sounds like, you weren't thrilled exactly with Astaire's performance. Were you finding yourself wanting to be Bing?
I don't know. I think I was just more so. Bing stepped in the type of what I wanted out of this film was less pettiness, less tit for tat between the two partners.
Okay.
And if there was ever a conflict, it was always Fred Astaire leading that and Bing reacting to it. I would have maybe liked a little bit more back and forth of kind of sharing the blame, if you will, of their friendship deteriorating. It's obviously not like a drama or anything, but I think Bing just stepped in a great way to just give some energy in the way I wanted to see it, instead of it being petty or anything like that then.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Fred, I think, is, again, in this kind of odd role. I don't know if I would describe it as bad performance, per se, but definitely not a standout. And again, it's kind of an odd note because the whole reason why I'm watching these films is for Fred. So him being the weaker part is not a great sign. As I've been touching on with all of these films, standout dance sequences for Fred are really good. There is a great drunk dance sequence in the beginning. I don't know, this could be a special down the road, but kind of drunk acting in film. We could do Jackie Chan, Drunken Master kind of thing.
That would be a great special.
Yeah.
Because, typically it's done poorly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like overacting.
Exactly.
What comes to mind for me is Denzel Washington in Flight.
Oh,
that's a very, very,
very
good job of being
absolutely.
Drunk.
Absolutely. The curled lips and absolutely.
Well, just the problem with the overacting is I have to act drunk. So you act like you overdo it. But the real thing is when you're actually drunk and in a public setting, you're not trying to act drunk.
Right.
You're a drunk person trying to act normal.
Exactly.
That's kind of it. So there's a drunk sequence, like a drunk dance sequence.
He shows up at the Holiday Inn.
Is he sloppier?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. And it goes into the dance choreography. And again, obviously, it's it is maybe a little bit over embellished on the inebriated aspect of it, but obviously behind it, Fred is obviously diving into the choreography to create a dance around the inspiration of being drunk, and the dance kind of unfolds in that way.
Cool.
And that's why I thought it was a standout. Another Another standout is, of course, when we get into more of the holidays passing by, that the Holiday Inn is open for the more patriotic holidays. I think it was either 4th of July or Washington's birthday. I forget which sequence it was.
Probably Washington's birthday.
Yeah.
Just because of the time of the year that we're looking at.
Very true. There's a firecracker dance sequence, which I think is wonderful. Again, plays to Fred's love of percussion around tap dancing and kind of making a song within a song about it. I just think those are really the two standout performances. So, one significant mark against this, like I said, I already talked about, I was not super thrilled with the plot just because it wasn't really what I wanted, and a lot of the times I get annoyed with romance plots when they are just so petty. One significant mark about this sequence is there's a sequence in this film that does include some very prominent blackface, and me scratching my head a bit with it. The song is titled Abraham and fills our February slot for Lincoln's birthday as the holiday. I think, and as I'll kind of unpack in a second, the kind of racial insensitivity to it. Of course, you're going to get some of this with older films. I was surprised to see it so prominent in a film like this with mainline stars. And to be fair, it is incorporated as part of a joke. Bing is using this blackface as a plot device to cover up the girl he's trying to hide from Fred so he doesn't steal her away.
Right.
So it's not blackface for the sake of blackface. I do think it's a little bit odd because one of the supporting characters is a black maid with 2 children, Louise Beavers. And in addition to other black actors in the musical sequence itself, I think my thoughts on this are simple from a critic perspective, and especially, we've been probably bringing it up almost every episode in February. How are we watching this in the modern day? I think in addition to it aging poorly with the racial aspect, my focus rather is I think it's a failure of the film not to use already casted black actors who are singing in the song. Louise is singing in the song Abraham to her children, so there clearly is a shared screen time, and instead they rely on this blackface where I think they could have incorporated in the already casted actors and actresses, specifically Louise, to incorporate in the film. I think that's where my criticism towards this lies. It's not necessarily directed towards the racial insensitivity. Certainly a trigger warning for you folks at home if that's something that you are not interested in seeing. But I think as well, critically speaking, it is a misuse of the cast and the tool, or not the tools, but the cast and the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, ammo that the film already has. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe it's too much to say, work a little bit more slick, in a smart way to incorporate your cast. I mean, this is the Bing Crosby, Fred Astaire show, so maybe back then creating a supporting cast member that was not one of the main leads would be outlandish to give them that much screen time. But what left me scratching my head is Louise Beavers is in the composition of the song. It just felt really odd that we had both shine. If she was just a maid in the story and not part of that musical act, that's where I would say, okay, well, it's more of a comedy device, but we're calling to it, and she gets her own screen time for it. Why did we have to have blackface paired with an actual black actress? That's where I think it's a little in poor taste.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I can't stress enough, though. I mean, I think the racial aspect and the time date aside, I think it's just a misuse, or rather, just a missed opportunity of what the film already has in its repertoire. Use your actors creatively and in an intelligent way. Yeah. But again, it was just so odd that we have this pairing of actual black actors, and Louise has singing chops as well. She has a moment in singing in Abraham. So, I think that criticism aside, because we're going long on a 1942 movie. movie. Let's wrap it up here. I think this movie doesn't have too much of a compelling plot for me, and the romance is more frustrating than anything. And I would say that is aside from this major talking piece in modern day about the racial insensitivity that is in a major sequence of this film. So with that said, not a huge rating, but I think definitely something that we can distinguish from the 100% that is on Rotten Tomatoes. We're going to go ahead and give Holiday Inn a 43.
Oh, wow, 43. Whew. Okay, much different than the 100% then.
Yeah, much different. Like I said, mostly there, I think the plot was just frustrating. It's so much like, I don't know. I didn't want to see these characters fighting. That's a little bit of my bias, but yeah, it just wasn't compelling. Weak stakes behind everything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So 43%. Yeah, I was expecting a little bit higher, but I mean, all that makes sense. I would be interesting next week doing White Christmas. And then comparing, kind of contrasting, and see what we have a little bit with that.
Well, I want to get back to Fred I like. If he's gonna get, I don't know. Bing doesn't have a month just yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But okay, all right. So 43 for Holiday Inn. So we're gonna take a huge jump. That was 19. It was 1942, and we're gonna go ahead into 2021.
Yep.
The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Okay, all right. This is obviously nominated out of one of the 5 for Best Animated Picture for this year's Oscars. Landed on my radar through one of the visual development artists, Alex Konstad, who I follow on social media. Really love his stuff, so wanted to give a shout out. I actually shot him a DM and say, hey, is this cool? But yeah, I really love his stuff. And as well, we have Sony Pictures Animations. While they may not have the most spotless record, I think Sony Pictures in general it has a very spotty record. I was a massive fan of Into the Spider-Verse. I think the animation style and what they developed there was huge.
I think everybody was a big fan, yeah.
Yeah, and what I'll get into is that this is actually using the same animation engine that they created for Spider-Verse, but with just different tweaks. So that's, once again, why this film is on my radar, and that really is the crux of what I want to talk about when it comes to why I think this maybe is my front runner for Best Animated Picture.
Really?
Out of the 5, yeah.
Honestly, it's nice just to get like another big studio behind animation, because it's so dominated by like DreamWorks, like Disney, Pixar, and everything like that. And
Pixar runs Oscars too,
Right. Yeah, and but just to have this with Sony like pumping out really good material, and I don't know, it's kind of cool. This was a Netflix release.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of nice to have that, mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah. This is a family movie first, but honestly, what I love about this is it is a great sci-fi movie because it really has something to say about our reliance on technology. It really has some follow through with that go beyond jokes. That the message is all around technology or the machines. The Mitchells are a very eccentric family. And trying to be a family in today's world and all that means, and so happens a robot apocalypse breaks out. So we have, I think, a great kind of modern film, not only because it is tackling today's problems and family raising in a world with social media and smartphones and yada yada, the whole nine, but on top of that as well, there is something that this movie has to say about tech, and using that to craft a sci-fi story is always a really good mark. I think sci-fi is defined by its kind of social or its commentary. Phones, social media, kind of an older generation. I don't want to say boomer, but an older generation of tech literacy. That's where the bite to all the jokes are. But behind that bite is a lot of heart, and I was really in love with this film for that reason. Much like Spider-Verse, like I said, this is an animation powerhouse. I actually had to do some research into this because I am not in the current animation industry, as much as I love, kind of tracking and developments of animation. The same software that they use for Spider-Verse is apparently broad enough to be a platform for many styles. So where we have the team over at Sony Animation Pictures using comic stylings for Spider-Man. In this, we have instead kind of a painted world quality to it, and that for that reason alone, I think it really does jump to a should watch for me, because we have a very similar look to the animation, but at the same time, it doesn't look like it at all. And I think it's just so unique to see on screen. There's this mash of painted strokes to CGI character models to kind of a cel-shaded look to their skin and their bodies and movement, but it is really breathtaking for this kind of painted world quality to it. Really, really a standout for that reason.
And we had brought this up recently when you had watched Klaus. The fact that we're getting unique and still like ever-changing animation style.
Yes.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And kind of refreshing.
Exactly.
So it's good to see that even like Sony using the same, as you said, using the same engines and everything like that as Spideyverse, that we're still getting something different.
Exactly.
We're still getting uniqueness in this film. It's kind of cool.
And it's such a... I really do think, obviously hindsight's going to be 20/20 on this, but I really do think these type of films are going to age so much better than the straight up CGI type of films that we see in early 2000s to early 2010s, where it's just about, we have the CGI, let's use it. This is obviously, we've been there, done that with CGI. Now, how do we mend classical approaches, different artistic type of inspiration, and meld them with CGI?
Very cool.
And I think that's what's going on here. And again, like I said, where for Spider-Man that was comic inspiration, now for Mitchells versus the Machines, oddly enough, for a robot apocalypse, we have this painted world quality, and it kind of creates some contrast to humanity and the robots there. So I think this is such a big highlight for me because, one, for the Oscar nomination, why we're talking about this on the podcast, pretty much, as far as a new watching or a new viewing. It is pushing the boundary, once again, of what we consider animation to be, or what we know animation to be. And I think for my enjoyment, on a very positive rating on this film, I love all sorts of animation, east, west, if it's following a new trend in just how I would say, maybe give credit to Animatrix that we covered recently for how 90s and how stylized it looked back then.
Yeah.
In just the same way, this is really crafting a spot for itself among every animated picture because of how unique it looks and how truly stylized and inspired the team is for this then.
Wow, very cool.
I think not to just gush over this film, I think a little bit of a downside for me, oddly enough, are characters. It was a touch too annoying for me, a touch too kid for me, and I think I just was plain not a fan of some voice actor choices. I don't want to. It's
when you say too much kid for you. I mean, it's a kid movie, but something was a little bit off. Like
it was just. It came off a little bit annoying, which I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's the most fleshed out criticism of it.
No.
But I think the setups are just, I don't know. It's going to be hit or miss, and I think if you're not watching this film with at least a younger audience, as much as the story has stuff for the adults, has that kind of sci-fi bite to it,
it loses it a bit.
Yeah, it loses it a bit because the jokes are just very,
And again, it is a kids movie, but that's where great animations really come in. Great kid animations, where those classics, but for both audience, adults and kids, you get. It's like, whether the kids in the room or not, an adult can enjoy the movie. When you look like, even you go back as far back as Toy Story, or but like Kubo.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh man.
Boss Baby.
Yeah. Yes. Which is controversial. How much I liked Boss Baby.
But truly great kid animations has something for all audiences of all ages.
Yeah, exactly.
And from what you just said, it it hits for the most part, but it's lacking a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's also a separation in the work of this team, where I would absolutely consider Spider-Verse to be must watch. This probably gets a little bit more capped at should watch for me for that reason. So
sure.
But I think as far as a teen kid animated movie, I think I can go easy on it. The script is solid all the way through, and that's where I would critically give the credit. Again, tying into how the jokes are being crafted, the sci-fi inspiration, but also the sci-fi examination of the subject matter then. So, but eyes on this team. This is a sharp-looking film, and mark my words, will be a standout for years to come because of the artists involved. It is about the artists involved with animation, and I'm hoping that this cracks through. To be fair, some very generic choices that are up for Best Animated Picture this year for the Oscars. We're going to go ahead and give The Mitchells versus The Machines a 78.
Wow, 78, great score.
Very solid.
And like you said, not quite a must-watch, but very, very highly, hey, should watch. Sit down,
Absolutely.
watch this movie, give it a watch.
Very entertaining and really a visual feast.
Especially if you have a kid. I can only assume if you have a kid, absolutely sit down and watch this with them, when you have a movie night or something like that. Wow, okay, Mitchell vs. the Machines, very good, very good. And just to note, some of the big actors in that one, you have Danny McBride and Maya Rudolph and things like that. There's large actors behind it, and it is Netflix only, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Okay, 78, great score. Let's see if those scores can kind of continue here. So we have another Oscar buzz kind of getting a lot of hype, at least, and some noms for the actors and actresses. Still 2021, a little bit later in the year. Being the Ricardos.
Yes, and really the dialogue powerhouse, Aaron Sorkin. He is up to bat for both directing and writing this film. This is a drama behind the scenes, and really a behind the scenes look at I would say the peak of I Love Lucy, and focused around the struggling marriage of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. The focus there being on that marriage drama, I think, is why this film is good. What oddly fell short for me is this behind-the-scenes look at I Love Lucy, because I don't necessarily have a lot of watch time with Lucille Ball in her comedic acting, but I felt it was just so weird that the portrayal of that writer's room interaction, it was like pulling teeth. It's a cool concept, by the way. Yes, absolutely.
Like if we're gonna make 2 hours and 11 minutes, I would say, like, we're gonna make a short or little documentary. I love the concept of exploring that.
Absolutely, and you can definitely see that Sorkin is inspired by both these characters in real life and the very real showbiz business dealings that happen with this movie or within this movie. So there's certainly a realistic approach. Maybe Sorkin's objective in this was to take away a lot of the polish that we see in 50s television that looks so flawless, and kind of give this behind-the-scenes look to say, hey, listen, they were talking about serious topics here.
Right.
I think that just undoubtedly that's where the film is the weakest. Where it's strong is with, again, this drama and this conflict within the marriage of Ball and Arnaz. Nicole Kidman, of course, up for this film is not up for Best Picture, but Nicole Kidman is up for Best Actress. My note here is I don't know, I can't even explain too much about it. It is Nicole Kidman is to Nicole Kidman. She doesn't feel like Lucille Ball, and of course, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say that because who really knows beyond family? Apparently, the daughter has given the stamp of approval on this story and this performance. But both on and off the TV set, it does not feel like the fearless comedy that Lucy has in the real show. We do not see Nick Kidman even try to perform any of the famous sequences we see from I Love Lucy in flashbacks, in the actual production of the single episode that this story focuses on. And I think it's just a huge missed opportunity, and definitely I'm scratching my head to why she was even nominated. I mean, it's a good performance for Nicole Kidman. I think it is not a good performance as far as the legend of Lucille Ball.
A representation of what Lucille Ball had and what she put on screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And fine if, the portrayal here is trying to tell a darker story. She is very high-strung. She is very controlling behind the scenes. And like I said, apparently that type of interaction in the writer's room was approved by the daughter, who could give some perspective to that, whether that's stories her mother told her or whatnot. But there's just no joy in this story, and I think that's just just such a massive missed opportunity for an endlessly entertaining performer. You tell me there's a story around Lucille Ball, immediately I'm jumping to still today the hilarious physical performances and physical comedy that the actress did in the show, and I was excited to see maybe Nicole Kidman get out of her shell and try to portray that. I think it's two sides of the coin that need to be done to call it a great performance, and without it, it's a solid performance, but I don't think it's Oscar winning and maybe not even Oscar nominated, if I'm being honest. I think it's fine if obviously Sorkin's objective here is telling a darker story, and if that physical performance or physical comedy would muddy the waters a little bit too on the impact of what's being told on the marriage between these two actors and actresses.
Right. Like he's trying to say it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly. On a very sunshine and rainbows show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is Heart of America, I Love Lucy stuff. Yeah, I just think, again, critically, Nicole Kidman's performance is one side of a two-sided coin, with missing, just probably the most defining quality, which was Lucille Ball's love of comedy, love of physical comedy. I mean, you go back, and I think again, I'm not a huge I Love Lucy fan, but I think of the ballerina scene where it's so just genuinely hysterical seeing her act on screen and perform physical comedy. I think that is not only is that missing entirely from this film, it just doesn't feel like Nicole Kidman is trying. So it was a big disappointment for that part. For me.
And like you said, she's nominated for lead actress.
Exactly.
And on that note, we have Javier Bardem is for best leading role actor, and J.K. Simmons is in for best supporting.
Yep, absolutely. Supporting cast is a big highlight. I think Javier is awesome. I think while physically his face, bit of a miscast. I don't know. I don't think he looks like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or at least look like him enough.
Exactly. Right. I think he balances the love Desi has for Lucy, despite the conflict in their marriage, and with still spotlighting this neglect that he has, how business gets in the way of love, how business sometimes is the only thing keeping love together, that working relationship. So I think it's a good performance, and I do love Javier. I think he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, and he is worthy, you would say, of the Oscar nom.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I would say definitely a front runner. I don't know for sure though.
Okay.
And obviously, we talk about it all the time, Tom. Who can read the minds of the Academy on this stuff,
Oh, I hate I hate the Oscar.
Yeah.
Most people do, honestly.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, J.K. Simmons as well, very solid. Probably the closest in look to the original actor for what it's worth.
Oh, okay, cool.
And again, I'm not trying to put too much importance on that, but I think where, if there's a theme in my criticism is that there's kind of a miscast in the portrayal of these characters, or at least a side of these characters. I think J.K. Simmons hits both sides of that coin. I think the production of the show is where this movie works best for me, though. I certainly like that we see what's happening in the writer's room. I guess the assumption Sorkin has in writing this story is that, well, we obviously know the happiness on screen that happens through the episodes. You don't just actually watch I Love Lucy. This is purely the behind-the-scenes look in that way.
Right.
I think I just wish there was more put into that, not for the sake of just wanting a happier story for the sake of it. It's a missing performance. It's a missing perspective of a legendary actress. And that really does fall exclusively on Nicole Kidman's shoulders. I think it's just a huge missed opportunity. This movie is much more concerned with, again, the drama of their marriage, and it does, it doesn't appear to be for the majority of the time, but in the end, it comes off weak and weaker than I would like. And I think, unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, but oddly enough, I do kind of agree with some of the not the critical bashing, but I think the lukewarm reception this film has had. I just think it lacks some punch, and again, it's just such a missed opportunity on Nicole Kidman's part to portray a legendary actress and breathe life into this script. I think the movie would be better if these comedic roles, not only for Kidman's performance to push her creatively and critically, it's missing life. It's just too much of a slog. It's too dark.
So is it all on her shoulder? Like, are you saying that the writing is there and it's her performance, or it's like, is it squarely on her shoulders? It sounds like the part could have been written a little bit better, and including some of those moments that you wanted to see.
Yeah, I think it's on her shoulders, but at the same time, I guess it is 50-50, because if she is not, if the script is not giving her segments to perform this physical comedy, then,
Right.
she can't be blamed for that at the same time.
Right.
So that's about it as far as what I have to say for Being Ricardos. We're going to go ahead and give Being the Ricardos a 59.
Okay, 59, not terrible,
Yeah.
It's kind of middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. Would you say, and like being a fan of Javier or something like that, I'm a big fan of him as well. Should I give it a watch for his performance, or is it just like, you can kind of skip this one?
I think my score at 59 really encompasses the good of everyone in the cast,
Right.
and again, the missed opportunity that I think comes off by the end of the film.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, so 59 for Being the Ricardos. All right, very good, Vin. So those were our previously released films, folks. We have 2 more on the docket here, but those are kind of now playing in theaters, and we just want to take a time here to have our producer segment. So we just want to kind of reiterate the fact that Vin and I, we host the show, and you all help produce the show. We kind of want to stay away from corporate sponsors and just, doing ads in the beginning, middle, and end of this that you're probably just going to fast forward through anyway. And we kind of like having the freedom of that. But you guys being producers, and how you produce is you go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and you're a producer through monetary value. And you can, whatever value that you feel like you're getting from us, from the podcast, from the website, if you can give back to us, whether that's large and small donation, it doesn't matter, whether it's reoccurring, whether it's one time. It's just kind of how we're operating this. And, it's a true producer credit for you all. And if you want, you can write a little note in for us. And if you're sending us money, we're going to read that note on the very next podcast. And if you want to be anonymous, say you want to be anonymous, and that's totally cool. But it opens up a dialogue with you and the ones really listening, the ones really checking out the site. It opens up dialogue with you. And are we doing a good job? Not doing a good job? Do you have critiques? Do you want to honestly, you just want to bitch at us? Do you want to have, open up any type of film dialogue or anything like that? And but it's fun. Again, it's a direct through line to you. It's a value for value model. And again, it's at dailyratings.com. Go to the donations tab and help produce what we're doing here. It takes a little bit of time. Well, it takes a lot of time, takes a little bit of money. And so we appreciate all of you who help produce this podcast and the website. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead to our now playing films, Vin. And what we have first is Kimi, directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Yes, Soderbergh's next film after No Sudden Moves. He must have a contract with HBO Max to produce a series of films, because I don't believe No Sudden Moves was anywhere in theaters, just on Max, and I think it's identical for Kimi as well. Nonetheless, this came out February 10th, so we're including this in the new release, and believe me...
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, whether you're paying for it with a ticket or not, it's still, again, always about what's worth your time, as far as dedicating to this.
Right, yeah.
Kimi is a story about a agoraphobic QA tester in the tech world for a fictional Alexa-type device, or Alexa-like device. She reviews audio logs and discovers a savage crime that kind of unfolds into the main plot of this film. I gotta say... despite some good reception online towards this, I really did not enjoy this film at all. Kravitz is just annoying, man. I just feel like I brought
Zoe
that up.
Kravitz, but we should mention Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz,
not
yeah,
the father.
I ain't gonna go my way.
But yeah, Zoe Kravitz plays the lead role here.
Exactly. Thank you. Thanks for covering the gap there. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been bringing up annoying. Maybe I was just annoyed this week, but Kravitz, I don't think is is enjoyable to watch on screen. She's hard to love intentionally. That is absolutely the character. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not enjoyable for so much of the movie. I think the main issue is that the film introduced aspects like this germophobic, agoraphobic condition for her. It is, I mean, it's there, it's constant for the character, but very little is done with it as far as by the end of the film to draw for its conclusion or create a, I mean, and there is an arc for her character, but it's just very weak. The same is true for the tech world. The movie seems to set up a critique for the tech world, for an Alexa-like device, and just really does nothing with it. There's nothing meaningful that comes from it. It's used a little bit for conflict in the second act. Obviously, it's driving the main plot of how Zoe Kravitz's character discovers this crime, but and obviously for her employment, but just little is done with it. Such a mirror opposite to Mitchells versus the Machines, where obviously totally different story, but still similar type of approach to critiquing tech, and does nothing with it. In Kimi's case, that is. So, yeah.
Was there something cool about it, and like were they just dropping the ball, or just like through and through? This was just like. Yeah, it's kind of not entertaining and not grasping in any type of way.
I think it's more so it sets up concepts that are initially engaging, kind of, it's basically saying that tech companies obviously shouldn't be trusted in a sense, but tech companies are also being propped up by, kind of a facade, if you will, kind of a fake. And again, even my difficulty talking about that with the film, so little is done with that critique. It's there to give the setting to her character being a QA tester for these audio logs for the Alexa device called Kimi. And by the end, I mean, there's a little bit of a redemption, but it's nothing. And
it just falls flat.
It falls flat. Nothing is done with it. There's no tiebacks to it. And I think it fails as kind of a thriller plot in a not a sci-fi world, but a clearly modern, present type of tech outlook world, and just does so little with it to tie it back by the end. I mean, really, the third act I had a big problem with, because it just becomes very cartoonish by the end, in addition to not tying back to anything that the film sets up in the very slow first and second act then.
I'll tell you what, and that's very different for Soderbergh. Soderbergh's usually dealt with with a large cast and
sure.
having fun with that, and also just like having a great time with the story. Like No Sudden Move, the way you have characters, it's just so much more involved than what it seems like the simplicity of this film.
Exactly, you're always puzzling pieces in, and maybe why I'm so cold on the film is because it was setting up some things that I was eager to puzzle in to how they play into this story, and nothing is just done with it. It's just very weak.
Yeah, and it's not him at all.
Yeah,
especially when he's coming off that other HBO Max film, where you have very interesting characters, and all of those are trying, like you often say, they're trying to one up each other constantly, and to play with that. And you take it back to Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 12 and Logan Lucky even, and just the characters trying to it's weird to see him
go so small scale,
not develop it. And small scale can be fine, it can be interesting, but to not go anywhere with it, and the fact that this is falling flat so much, it's like, I wonder, like, what was the deal with this?
Yeah.
Like, as you said, did he just have to? Was it in the contract that he had to make? Make
you just had to pump them out.
Right.
I mean, it could be that. The film is set during COVID specifically, so maybe this was a smart production choice to make a story with or make a film with COVID restrictions. I think, though I haven't dived too much into the online reception as far as the specifics being said, beyond like just a quick, surface level look, I think for me, I don't want to give it too much praise for this because I don't find it particularly enjoyable. And again, it would be one thing if these aspects of agoraphobia and germophobic tendencies in our character were taken anywhere, and maybe we talk about COVID through this film, that this character was struggling with this before these elements of isolation. I wish that was there in the film. Nothing is done with it. Again, these almost all these aspects are introduced in the first act. They get muddied in second act, and then they go nowhere in third. So,
okay.
That's really, I mean, the honest truth of it. And all while Zoe Kravitz is, I mean, fine performance, but the character just very annoying and not enjoyable to watch on screen.
Wow, okay.
Some quick notes. Sound design is cool. A lot of care is put into the muting of certain spaces and headphones. I think it was a big plus for me as far as sound design because it was enjoyable and puts a spotlight on how the character is really diving into their work as a QA tester for these audio logs from this Alexa device, Kimi. Sadly, some other implementations of tech are not done as well. I feel like recently I've really been tuned into how texting is portrayed on screen, and honestly, I've been saying that all of it has learned from the House of Cards lesson that you want actor and text on the same shot. So you see reaction and you get the info dump. This has this, but it's handled very clumsily, and it doesn't come off good, which is odd because I think, if I had to put money on it, we were over the hill as far as everyone understands how to do this, and this film puts it very loud. The text notifications are like ear blaring. It's very weird, very odd.
Well, yeah, you were taking note. Was it last week? I forget what movie it was, but when we were talking about it, it was almost like the old way of reading text, reaction shot, reading text, facial shot. That back and forth was getting old and crusty, kind of.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you would have preferred that over this.
I kind of do because it's handled a little bit clumsy, even though it is the principle of text and actor on same shot. So just a quick note, and I think finally, if there is a point, this film it starts to pick up because it is going for a thriller vibe. So there has to be some stakes, and that ties into Zoe Kravitz's character confronting leaving isolation, and that's kind of naturally where this film is going with agoraphobia as a setup. What is terrible is that every single shot at a certain point becomes a Dutch angle, and it is on a slant, almost. I mean, probably for like 20 minutes solid. And it's not that I really hate Dutch angles or slanted shots or anything like that. It's certainly appropriate in some areas. It's being used. Don't get me wrong. I understand why it's being used in this because it's the character is struggling with leaving isolation. So it is supposed to be this unsettling type of communication, but it is really just god awful. It is just it is just used to such an excess. It's like at both times it's like, okay, I get it, and two, like I'm getting nauseous. Like this is not.
It's nauseating on multiple levels.
Yeah, kind of
It just sounds like lazy. It sounds like this was very lazy. It sounds like the writing was lazy, the directing was lazy.
Yeah, maybe. I don't want to do it because I really liked No Sudden Move. I really did.
Well, yeah, it's a different project. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this has no care consideration was in it.
It really, it's true.
You had a slanted angle for like...
It's like 20 minutes of the film. It's ridiculous. And it really brought up, obviously in No Sudden Move, there was a very interesting film style portrayed in that film.
The lens itself.
Exactly. Which kind of was a 50-50 good and bad highlight for me in that film. In this film, maybe Soderbergh was, or the cinematographer was rolling the dice on saying, hey, let's do something, bold and really commit to something throughout the film. Does not work in this case. And I can't stress enough, I understand why it's being used as far as a storytelling method. It's not good.
Okay.
So. But to wrap up, like I said, just really not a great film. What wastes on the screen, what little time, is on screen, it's just wasted because it has nothing potent to say about any of the concepts the film brings up. Isolation, the conditions of our character, the mental and physical, kind of debilitating aspects of her being challenged to leave her safe spot. The tech world, I think, was probably the most disappointing element because it really is setting up a dialogue about our reliance to verbal AI and Alexa and Google and whatnot and Siri, but just does nothing with it. And I would say most of all in the third act, there is not only zero tie back to these concepts, zero fall through to these concepts, but the ending of the film is just so cartoonish. I was like, wait, what? Like it comes out of nowhere. It's like, why is this the solution? Why is this the end of the arc for our character? And I could not see how anyone would want to finish this story in this way. It turns and it just turns in such a terrible way, and it just felt like such a colossal waste of time for that reason. Because I mean, again, and if anything, I'm interested to see, can they make a boring character? Can they make this annoying character have a meaningful conclusion to overcome her struggles and overcome the drama of this film, which is very an internal drama?
Mm-hmm. No.
Nope. Definitely not. So I would say it does not deter me from my excitement to see Kravitz in Batman. She, of course, is going to be playing Catwoman, and I think that's probably a perfect casting. My hope is that she, through her acting, is able to flesh out the character a little bit more here than here. And hopefully as well, the writing is just not going to set her up for what was a very annoying time to watch on screen. So we're going to go ahead and give Kimi a 36.
36, almost better than what it was sounding like.
Yeah.
But overall, just kind of a waste of your time.
Definitely streaming fodder.
Yeah.
And
it's just...
Which is a shame. Absolutely a shame.
Yeah, and who knows what the production was behind it, but I mean, overall, it just seems
exactly.
like for any audience, don't really waste your time with it.
Exactly. I mean, Zoe Kravitz, gorgeous on screen. I'm a simple man. You put a chick in blue hair, I'm there. But no, it's not worth your time.
Okay, so Kimi with the 36%. Let's see if we can turn things around here.
Okay.
For
I hate to disappoint you, Tom.
No, not disappointed at all. I can't wait to hear the next one, personally.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to make their money back. That being Comcast NBC. Because this is only a Peacock release.
Oh, true.
And the marketing was out the wazoo.
Oh, I know, right?
But here we have a new release, "Marry Me."
Yeah.
With J-Lo and Owen Wilson.
Oh man. I can
Here we go.
Yeah,
tell the story.
It's off to a good start when my notes start with So I can probably get behind one of these every now and again. These type of romances, I would say structurally it's probably most close to like a Hitch, and I think it's a good example of this type of subgenre being she's out of my league type of rom-com.
And there's something about this film where I barely know anything about it.
Right.
Obviously, it's what I get from commercials and
Right,
such.
right.
But Hitch has always been in the back of my mind.
Yes.
And it's something there's a playfulness. It's classic rom-com, a playfulness, and you have... the same elements are kind of there where these two maybe shouldn't be together. I mean, Owen Wilson and J-Lo, that's kind of the whole premise.
Right.
And you have Will Smith being the character he was and not supposed to be a guy who falls in love and everything like that.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to compare, but Hitch was kind of enjoyable.
Yeah. I think in general it just belongs to the same subgenre of she's out of my league or they are out of my league, and kind of against all odds, love wins in that type of subgenre.
And what do we get here?
Marry Me. Just let me intro it. Marry Me is about Jennifer Lopez playing a superstar singer who compulsively marries Owen Wilson, a math teacher. I have to say, I don't think this is a bad performance from J-Lo. Oddly enough, she has some decent energy in this role. I think. While the writing is probably the safest thing imaginable, she really does have some good moments that come off natural and there's excitement and enjoyment on screen. It's entertaining. I wouldn't necessarily call it funny, but it's just very heartwarming. And believe me, if there was anything for you folks at home, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to say, hey, is this going to be a catastrophic J-Lo performance as we may have known her acting career to be? I think a serious positive is that J-Lo's performance, I would say, is not only passable, but leaning towards good. She is playing a superstar here. And I think because she is a superstar, it's enjoyable to watch. There's an easy role for her to play.
It's not a big reach.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a perfect way to put it.
She's good at playing the role because she is that role.
Exactly. So the enjoyment of seeing her on screen is a nice match. I have never seen a lot of the catastrophic J-Lo films, and definitely the big deterrent in even thinking about reviewing this for Valentine's Day week. I've never seen the worst Geely. What is it? Geely with Ben Affleck. I mean, it is that's the king of them all as far as they say. It's just a terrible
It's just
movie.
bad, yeah.
But I have seen a little sci-fi movie called The Cell, and where I'm bringing this up is I know what catastrophic bad J-Lo acting looks like. So I can't stress enough, I wasn't just swept up by the romance or the story of this film. I was really looking at J-Lo's performance critically here, and I have to say, not only is it a big bump up from what could have been a really bad performance, but I would say it's pretty damn good. And again, I think you hit the nail on the head, Tom. Maybe it's not a huge reach. Nonetheless, it works. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
yeah. Oddly enough, Owen Wilson is just the worst. I just...
That's such a shame.
I know. It is... Oh, God. His character is supposed to have just no life. And even when it picks up, it just feels like he's phoning it in. And maybe, hey, if I was Owen Wilson, you tell me, my agent calls me up and say, hey, you want to be in a rom-com with J-Lo? Maybe that is the time to phone it in. But it's a shame because J-Lo is giving her all, and Owen Wilson is just not there
And that's
to
coming
match
across,
it.
it's coming across the screen as J-Lo is giving it her all and Owen Wilson is not.
Yes, exactly.
It almost sounds like J-Lo is being very good at being a character very similar to J-Lo.
Yeah.
And Owen Wilson, I don't know how much of a range Owen Wilson has, because it seems like every time he's in a film, it's almost like they're just like, hey, be Owen Wilson. Like, we need Owen Wilson in this. He played that short role in the beginning of The French Dispatch.
Yes.
And it was just like, he was great in that role. But he was
I would say all Wes Anderson, he's great in it.
right,
So.
and he was just playing Owen Wilson in it, though. You know what I mean? And so, was he Owen Wilson, or was he like actually trying to?
It's
be better?
neutered.
Like, what's the?
Yeah, it's much more boring. It's again, he plays a math teacher, so obviously the kind of comedic pairing, the out of the league aspect of the romance is that, well, he's like a boring as boring can be math teacher, and you have J-Lo being a superstar, charismatic, goddess basically. So that's the type of matching there. I think the script is weak throughout the whole film, but where this compounds is an extremely weak performance from Owen Wilson. I think the boringness that his character has to be could be taken in still a very entertaining direction, and I just again, as maybe unfair as it is, and certainly, I like Owen Wilson as an actor and want to see him succeed. Phoning it in is really the term I would use for this performance.
Or looking for the paycheck.
Exactly.
Right.
And again, put me in his shoes. If there was a time to phone it in, it was probably for a movie called Marry Me. You know what I mean?
Pretty simple plot. I mean,
exactly.
it's not like dynamic in any sort of way. Like I said, I'm
Exactly.
sure the paycheck was relatively good.
Yeah.
Peacock wanted this big original.
Oh,
and stuff,
they definitely
but,
did. They definitely did. So
it's interesting the fact that J-Lo actually comes across quite well, and
yeah, and that's a shame. It's
quite
not
the contrast.
matched.
Then
It's not matched. It's like I would almost almost compare. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a weird comparison off the top of my head, but it's almost like, you're in a Nick Cage movie. You're like, okay, I'm just taking a check because Nick Cage is taking a check, and then Nick Cage gives a great performance. It's kind of a mismatch in communication of who's giving their all, and again, against all odds, it's J-Lo giving her all, and I think it really does work. So yeah, just a shame, and I can't stress enough. I think where this film really boils down into monotony and genericness, it is lying with Owen, and the script writing as a whole. I think it compounds with Owen, like I said.
Okay, all right.
A quick plus and minus. Decent upside is the music, believe it or not, with J-Lo providing vocals and leading all the songs. Has an interesting take on modern fake hit songs. I really, don't get me wrong here. Let me. Maybe I'm going into too positive to what is clearly, like nonsense pop songs. But, don't get me wrong. It is obviously just a vehicle to sell the soundtrack. This film actually had a theater limited release of a sing along version of this.
Are you serious?
Yeah, with the bouncing dot and everything on the lyrics. So don't get me wrong. I am as cynical as they come. I understand this is just a vehicle to sell the soundtrack, but I'm telling you, there is some parody to these songs. I think there was, oddly enough, some care put into crafting a fake pop song, what would be electric, and the songs themselves are kind of good in that way. And
correct me if I'm wrong, this was not, J-Lo didn't take this role, and one of her singles isn't in this. Like, she's not promoting a new single and she's using it as a piggyback, correct?
No, I don't think so, but
Okay.
the film has a fully fleshed out soundtrack of probably, I want to maybe say like a 5 to 7 original J-Lo songs in this, that she's providing vocals for.
Okay. All
So
right.
again, don't get me wrong, it is definitely a business move to try to have this romance filled with, packed to the brim with songs that will sell separately, will be listened to separately. I think creatively, though, I can't stress enough. I think there was some intentional parody to it in how a pop song would sound in this very close to reality, but still parodied world of superstardom.
Okay,
So,
I mean, that's pretty, all right.
yeah. It definitely it was a mild highlight because, again, much like J-Lo's acting, just totally didn't expect it. So
props for props are due.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely I couldn't shake the fact that there was some care put behind it beyond, obviously the very obvious, business move to put, pack a soundtrack into this big movie. So I would say the minus on the quick plus and minus is the ad placement in this film.
They need to make their money somehow.
I immediately paused after the fourth new company was introduced. And I just had to walk away for a moment.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was just like, wow. It's so like deer in the headlights when they deliver the line, when they talk about the company. And oftentimes it's a solution to conflict. And it's just really, just gross ad placement. I think, if it's going to be ads in a film, I mean, obviously, again, much like the soundtrack thing, I understand there has to be kind of a business move behind here. I think the parallels of what we see in the soundtrack and these ad placements is that the soundtrack works, I think, on its own, and maybe has some creative merit to it in how it's comedically paired in this world. These ad placements do not, and like you mentioned, Tom, this is of course a Peacock original. This is, of course, NBC's new digital sow. So
They were pushing it, too.
Yeah.
I'm shocked to see how much ad money is being pushed for this film.
Yeah. And it being an NBC property, they cart out Jimmy Fallon for a supporting role, which was terrible. It was
They got that drunk on screen.
Yeah. We're calling him out. Slander.
Oh, my gosh.
It just this whole this whole, minus segment, like I said, or this con segment, it relates to the money-making aspect of it and how much NBC is just pulling on everything NBC to it. So
it's like gaudy. It's just, I don't know.
Exactly. You can definitely see that NBC is like, okay, we're pulling all stops. This is our property. That's where it was.
Like, who's asking for this?
Exactly. Exactly. So, but like I said earlier, the script is pretty evenly spread on how generic and predictable it is, and you
based
can say,
on a graphic novel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A graphic novel? What?
2007.
What? A graphic novel?
I'm not kidding.
J-Lo read it. She was like, I gotta play the soundtrack to this.
But generic would be the best word I can assume.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, it if I really, or rather when I have to put audio to my Hitch review, which I don't think is too high on the ratings, but, there's not going to be too much that I'm expecting out of a rom-com like this. The she's out of my league subgenre to it. It is going to be predictable. And I think there are some highlights, but I think the problem with it is that it is solely concerned about feeling good, and there's no pepper, there's no contrast in what is done. It's all up, and the minor times we take a step back is just like, it's so has to be there because it's the, we need a little bit of conflict by the end of the second act of the film. It's just like... So forced, and again, I can't tell you how much it compounds with some very poor performances, and it's just bad. Again, if my praise is anywhere, it is for J-Lo, Jenny from the Block,
that's cool,
which is amazing because that's I think the standouts are on soundtrack and with her performance. I think if you are a big fan of J-Lo against all odds, you loved Anaconda, you loved The Cell, J-Lo's here for you. J-Lo's back. But I think even if this was a flawless film, because of that aspect of the subgenre and the very specific subgenre it's shooting for, it really is destined to be middle of the road. We're going to go ahead and give Marry Me a 46.
Okay, 46. You can't get too much more middle of the road than that.
I told you it was a mediocre week. I wanted to get some surprises for you, Tom.
No, but I like what I'm seeing here.
You want to fill them out. You got to fill out the bid.
Yeah, not the best week for you, though. You got to sit through all this. I'm glad,
Typical Valentine's Day.
46% for Marry Me. Yeah, Hitch is at a 60, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Makes a lot more sense.
Look at that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, wow, it goes to show... I'm probably going to feel the same way on these films because of that subgenre. It's kind of predictable from even the, I don't know if Hitch you would say is the original. It's definitely probably
not. But
I think these out of the league kind of, they're all going to play the same. They're all going to,
just basic cutesy rom-com kind of. I don't know. It's just like, all right,
it's kind of like
if you're in the mood, go for Hitch rather than this.
I think that's a good way to go about it. Absolutely.
It's one of those things. Or it's going to be on TBS, and it's just like, all right, I'm doing the dishes. This
Peacock
is what I land on.
lets the grass. They're going to have an iron grip.
Oh, that's right.
You subscribe to Peacock. There's no free trial for Peacock either. They're getting all that Olympic money.
They need it.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
but excited to see if Peacock can produce something a little bit better. I believe this is the first actual featured film that they've done.
They're going heavy on the TV series, so they're doing the Bel Air, which kind of looks kind of good, to be honest with you. They're kind of, I think, going for the TV stuff more.
Yeah, but excited to see if they can do something else, because...
Because the 46 ain't going to do it.
They got the money. They got Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon's going to be a sporting role in every movie.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, Vince. So, is there anything else you'd like to add, Vin? We're going to roll credits here.
Oh, no. That's good for me, I think.
All right, Vin, well, we appreciate you stopping by. And folks at home, we're just going to run it through one more time here. So we have Holiday Inn at a 43%. We have The Mitchells versus the Machines at a 78%. Being the Ricardos at a 59%. Kimi at a 36%. And Marry Me with a 46%. We thank you so much for listening this week, folks, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, where you can donate whatever amount of value you feel that you received from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.